Alright y'all, so it's me, Cameron from Royal Anoles, and what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about fat-tailed gecko care. Anyways, roll the intro. Welcome to Royal Anoles, my friends. Let's get into the video. Now, as you know, fat-tailed geckos are a cool gecko. They look a lot like your leopard geckos, but, well, they're not. Specifically because they like it a little hotter, they like a little more humidity, and debatably some different other practices are involved because, well, it's a different animal. So, let's break it down. I think a good way to start is how big does a fat-tailed gecko get? Now, your average fat tail can be anywhere from 7 to 9 inches, and obviously there are some outliers. Some can get a little bigger, but you're never going to see something 4 feet. You're not going to have a little, I don't know, black throat in your room. Okay, so let's get into what you should probably house your fat-tailed geckos in. Now, I recommend a bare minimum of a 20-gallon. Now, why is that? Because a 20-gallon gives them enough space to give all the hides, all the water that they need, little water bowls, gives them enough room for the plants to take coverage, and make some nice spots for them to hide in all that little magical grove. So you get a pretty decent enclosure out of it. Now, you can always go bigger, and I'm not the one to tell you not to. Plenty of people will tell you to do it, and I'm even telling you to do it, because bigger is better if you know what you're doing. Because say if you just throw them in a 40 with all the same stuff, but you don't add more than what you had in your 20-gallon, you're already doing a downgrade because the animal's not going to have as many visual barriers, so they're going to feel more stressed, and you're kind of, being a little redundant in that factor because now the animal's stressed, and our goal is to make these animals comfortable. Alright? Now, hope that gives you good guidelines for doing larger enclosures down the road as well, my friends. Now, when you're building your fat-tailed gecko enclosure, the kind of substrate you'd like to use should probably be more of a soil mix. Now, I don't personally recommend cocoa fiber, but plenty of people get away with it. But here's some topsoil brands that are really good. Now, when you do this, I do recommend you mix it with things like sand. Then it can allow for better burrows and all that other stuff. Now, when you're playing with your substrate, you want to put things on top of it, like a water bowl, perhaps. Maybe some plants. A good plant recommendation I always recommend are snake plants, pothos, and there's probably a lot of others, but I work in a lot of mainly of arboreal plants, so a lot of things I know about plants go up and don't cover, sadly. There's other videos for that. But when you're playing with the substrate, you're putting things also on the ground besides your water bowl, like I just mentioned, hides. Now, if you're doing hides, you want to do, obviously, you want to put a couple in there, at least 2. But if you're really good at playing with your dirt and hides and cork, you can almost make an endless number of hides in this tiny little area for your geckos. But you should also have a hide that's more designed to be more for a humid environment and one more a little dry, so they have an area to choose to be secluded from you and everything around them. Be a little bit more wet or a little bit more dry. Give them options. First off, waxworm should not ever be considered a primary or a secondary feeder that should be fed commonly at all. Same with butterworms, they're pretty much just a bigger waxworm. Now, what you should be feeding them quite commonly are things like your dubia roaches, red runners, and a lot of crickets. Some breeders will also mention if you feed them a lot of crickets while they're young, they'll be a little harder to get the things like your mealworms and superworms when they're older. Just a little thought for y'all to know. How often should you feed your fat-tailed geckos? Now, if they're a baby, you should probably feed them a bit more than what you would an adult, because they're growing, all those extra things. Now, you should feed them about every day if they're a baby. But when they turn into a nice, lovely adult fat tail, you should probably start feeding them about every other day, about a solid handful of crickets, and then they're going to be, good. They're going to stay nice and healthy for you at home. Now, when it comes to things like UVB for these fat-tailed geckos, a lot of people say they're a nocturnal species, but in my experience, I've seen a bit of crepuscular activity, which means they're out a little bit in the morning. So what I'm saying with that information is that you could and probably might even see some benefits to offering your fat tails at home. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't offer them UVB or should. Honestly, there's plenty of people that tell you don't need it. There's plenty of people that tell you it's a must. But in my experience, when I started seeing this behavior, I gave them a bit of UVB, and I think it's doing better for them. But you should also be offering them things like vitamins, specifically calcium with D3 and a good multivitamin. Whoa, y'all, what does that say right there? Huh, pretty cool. And what does it say now? Yeah, that's really cool. I would consider it, me personally. Now, African fat tails actually really enjoy humidity, more than what you would probably consider anything related to a leopard gecko. So, with their humidity requirements, I keep it at a bare minimum of 40% of humidity all around, and I would go highest as maybe 70, 75 on high end, you know. But a good 40 to 60 is a great gradient to have with your humidity during the day to the night. You know, should probably have a night increase of humidity. By that I mean spraying it down, because something I've noticed with keeping a lot of lizards, that if you spray them down at night, they're more likely to drink it, and it takes you know, takes a lot longer for that water to evaporate, so they get to have more water. So like most reptiles, African fat tails will enjoy and very much appreciate having a temperature gradient from low 70s. So I'm talking honestly just in true 70 degrees, but maybe, you know, like 72. 72 to around a good solid 80 is what you'll use to get up to your warmer side. And then you want to keep the middle part, you know, a little bit around that nice 80-ish. And then you want to have a hot spot around 90, max out around 95. That's how you should do their gradient. It works really well for them, gives them the option to be colder, gives the option to be a nice good gradient of I'm good, I'm not too hot, I'm not too cold, and then you got them in the area where they can bask. Now, as you see here, this is my fat tail, and I just want to show y'all because she's a pretty good weight. Now, as you're thinking, oh, that's a weird angle, I also just wanted to show off my tattoos. So let's get a better angle. So this is what I would say is a good recommendation to get your fat tail to look like. I'm talking in specifically body weight. You know, you're not seeing any signs of metabolic bone disease. She has a good tail, no regrowth. This is why I'd say is a good fat tail. So we covered all those care topics in the video. I even showed you what a good fat tail looks like. Now there's something I don't see in a lot of care guides with just most reptiles in general, is shedding. Now if you were paying attention, you can especially see this around her little feet, that she's about to go in the shed because they're graying up and, you know, skin's about to come off. So I'm going to help you, the new keepers in the back, figure out what to do in these situations. Now something you could do is obviously increase the humidity intake that you're doing in there by spraying it down, adding more moss on there, or just doing other stuff. But no one wants to also go risk the factor of going in and having to grab your fat tail and removing stuck shed because they didn't get it off on their own. So as you can see here, we prepared her a lovely bath for her to get all in there and get all that water nice into her system and help that shed come off well. But as you see, she's a little busy drinking and stuck on my hand, so we're going to jump to a new clip. Now she's in there very annoyed with me for probably about 10 to 30 minutes. I like to run 15. Now something else you can do is spray down the container that already has water with your sprayer of water, so it makes the water moving and they're more likely to want to drink it. And right about now, she goes and starts investigating and she's going to start drinking some water from here.